Hello there, my name is Don Price and my very first confession for you is I am a work futurist. Which brings us to your first question, what is a work futurist? Part of my role over the last 25 years is working at the intersection of humans and technology, understanding how we unleash human potential and we build better thriving teams and better thriving organizations. And I've got to do this with a multitude of small, medium businesses all the way up to enterprises. What I'm going to share with you today, I was almost tempted to brag. I was going to brag about how great it is being a futurist, and you could all sit there at home and nod. But instead, I've got a challenge for you. I actually have a belief that the modern times we're in, with the chaos we're experiencing in the world and the challenges we're feeling in the workplace, that all of us actually need to become a work futurist. So instead of bragging to you today about what one might be and how much I enjoy doing it, I want to share some of that knowledge and wisdom and practical insights so you can be a futurist. If this time together goes well at the end of it, you can get a certificate and you can become your own work futurist. Now, why is this important right now? I mentioned the chaos that's happening in the world. The wars, the geopolitical environment, the economy. There is so much for us to get distracted by. And the challenge we have is when we get distracted and life gets a bit stressful, we start to look down. The blinkers come in. And we stop thinking broadly about our businesses. We stop investing in our people, and we just get busy solving this week's problem. All the real problems we have, we think, oh, I'll do them next week. In fact, not next week, I'll do them next month. In fact, not next month, I'll do them next year. And we kick the future down the road. My challenge to you today, and what I'm hoping to inspire you with, is that I believe you can create a better future. And I believe that action and that agency is there for you to accept. So instead of trying to predict the future and imagine what it looks like, I want to help you today build a better, thriving future for you and for your teams and for your organization. Now, when I think about this in literal terms, I need to be honest with you. When I first became a futurist, I did have a look around. Was I going to get a crystal ball? There isn't one. So I don't want you to invest time overly thinking, I must know with high certainty what the future looks like. What I believe your challenge is right now is how can you build direction for yourself and your teams so you can build that thriving future that you dream of. And I'm going to talk about it in 3 ways today. 3 things that I do as a futurist that I think all of you are capable of doing that will help you become better leaders. The first one is thinking broad and thinking in 3s. So back to that point before. When we're in a world of total chaos, it's easy for those blinkers to come in and you look down the problem right in front of you and you think that problem is everything. What we actually reward right now in the world of uncertainty is the ability to think broad. Broad leaders are amazing, and you probably already are imagining some in your world. They are leaders that when faced with a singular challenge, imagine the 2 other things that it might be. In my world previously, sort of go, Don, it's all about the tech. Yeah, this AI transformation, this AI thing we're going through right now is all about technology. And AI is about technology, but it's also about people, how they work, how they operate, how they think, and how they learn. And it's also about our practices of how we work. Just think about it. If you were in an organization right now that had poor practices and you layered in technology, you're going to do those poor things faster. And please, don't do that. So you have to be able to think broadly in 3s. When you do that, you start to understand the trade-offs. As a leader, you start to think as a portfolio. What are the things, the multiple things that I need to do? Another example, it's all about teams. As long as I can get the team working, I'll be absolutely fine. Not untrue. You do need a team to be thriving, but how do you think about the 2 other elements of teamwork? The individuals in the team, their wants, their needs, their desires, how you motivate, engage, right? How you connect with them meaningfully. And then you might build that psychological safety as a team, but again, the other layer there is the organization. How do I think about how my team ladders up to the goals of the organization? How do I build that connection to our purpose, our mission, our goals? Again, it's about balance in the number 3. In another world, it's all about the customers. If we can just get the customers happy, we'll be fine. But you've got to pause and ask yourself, is it just about the customers? How can I take a step back as a leader and think more broadly about not just my customers, but my end users and other stakeholders impacted in the work that I do? The great leaders that I work with aren't thinking about 10 different things. They're giving themselves breadth in how to think about 3 things. And there are so many 3s I could give you right now. The challenge I want to give you is, as you think about this, what's an example in your world where someone says it's just this one thing, but you know deep down you have to go broader. It could be, we'll be fine as long as we get short-term results. But deep down you know that you need to get short-term results and medium-term and long-term. It could be, we just need a low fidelity, just do it quickly. There's so many things that people give you where it's just one thing. And my challenge for you is to accept that one thing, but also work out what are the other 2 things. When you do and you get that breadth, it's not just about being aware of them. It's about going, how in my organization and my team right now, can I build a portfolio of work that matches those needs, that says, I need to balance my effort between the organization, the team, and the individual, or the technology and the people and the practices. When you do that portfolio approach as a leader, you become balanced. Balanced leaders are phenomenal because they're not betting everything on one outcome. They're understanding the variability, the nuance, and let's be honest, the complexity of modern business. Those are the leaders, and you're one of them who goes, it is a little bit chaotic, and it is a bit crazy out there, but I'm not going to let the imagination of crisis stop us being effective. What I'm going to do is be crystal clear on how we focus, but not just focus on one thing. The best leaders in 2026 and beyond are the leaders that play the and game. I'm going to look after technology. We need great tooling. I'm going to look after my people. We need to be smart and engaged and challenged and motivated. And I'm going to look after my practices. And when you do that, you're step 1 on the way to being a futurist. Now, before we move on to the second chapter, just have a moment to pause. Right now, there's something in your mind, could be in your heart, something in your body going, I know what my thing is. Just write it down and come back to it later, because you need to be able to think live, what are the other 2 things that you're missing right now, and how do you create that balance? So now you're a third of the way to becoming a futurist. The second chapter is probably one of the hardest chapters. I call it seeing around corners. It's the true mystery of being a work futurist that people think I actually predict the future of work. And I can't do that. I haven't got a crystal ball. I don't know next week's lottery numbers, and all of that stuff is fiction. But I do believe I can teach you to look around corners because you know your industry really well. Now, sometimes that knowledge of your industry stops you. It stops you thinking broadly, as we covered in that first chapter. And actually what you need to be able to do is dream. Now, I don't mean go to bed dream, right? What I'm talking about is as a kid, and maybe as a young adult, we all have this wonderful ability to dream about different worlds. That is now your superpower in the future of work, right? The mistake many leaders make, certainly leaders with history and legacy and lots of experience in the same industry, the problem is that is all they've ever seen. That history should be your superpower, but how do you stop that history being the thing that slows you down? The challenge people often have here is they look at what happened last year. It's a common mistake. There's many companies that I work with are doing a strategy session, and you stop and you say, here's what we did last year, and someone asks the question, how can we do 5% more next year? And you come up with a plan. That's called iteration. And there was a time when that was enough. If the world was completely stable, if the world was normalized and there was none of this chaos, maybe looking at last year's plan and just making a 5% change would be enough. I just don't have the sense that that's going to work in the modern environment that we're facing, in the modern reality of the chaos we have around technology change and the chaos we have in the world. So how do we truly see around corners but not predict the future of work? Now, I'm going to actually mess with you here because normally people start with today. And actually the way I do this isn't to start with today. I actually start in the future. The best way to see around corners is to actually start by imagining a time period. When I'm doing this with leaders, it's normally 18 months, maybe 3 years. And your challenge is to look, let's call it 3 years. You look 3 years out and you say, how can I draw a low fidelity picture of what the future might, that's a very important word, what the future might look like in 3 years. When you do this, you're tapping into your beliefs. It's where we have to dream. We have to let our imagination flow. And this is where AI can be your friend, right? If you're going to use technology, if you have an idea, a belief of what the future might look like, you can use technology like AI to explore and challenge and experiment and draw that low fidelity picture of what might happen in 3 years' time. Now, the challenge many leaders have here is they default to that word truth or no. What do you know about what's going to happen in 3 years? And the honest answer is, I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I do have a belief. I believe that we'll still be buying houses. I believe that we'll still be selling houses. I believe we'll still have a rental market. There's many things that I believe to be true. But maybe one of the things that I believe is the way we go about buying and selling houses will be different. So you paint a low fidelity picture of what you believe the future might look like. That should be somewhat unconstrained. It should be freeing, it should be liberating, and I'm never, ever going to hold you accountable for delivering on it. So it's not a business case, right? We've all done that before. It's not one of those. Let your imagination flow. Ideally, as well as using AI, I always recommend to people, do this with someone else. Get that collective imagination, the challenge, the provocation, and again, ask yourself what might be. So that's step one, really good fun. After step one, it gets a little bit confronting, but also kind of fun. Step two is quite different. You have to come hurtling back to reality. You take yourself from that wonderful vision of what might be true in 3 years' time, and you bring yourself to today. This is when you have to be brutally honest with yourself and your organization. What is the lived reality that we're experiencing right now? What is true today? And this isn't beliefs, this is what you actually know. This is where you confront the messy reality of what you're experiencing. And it's not that it's good, bad, or indifferent, you just have to be honest. Here's where we're at today. If your goal was to be number one in 3 years' time and you're currently number 5 in market, you have to be honest that you're number 5, right? You can have grand goals to be number 1, but be honest about where you are today and why you are there. Once you've done that, this is where things get really exciting. And again, this is where technology and AI can actually be an amplifier for you rather than a distractor. Because step 3 is the bit where you get to have the most amount of fun. Step 3 is where you actually look, what are the things that we could do or might do that would directionally take us there? This isn't about having the answer. This isn't about a burden of proof. It's about saying, if I have a dream of 3 years' time and it looks like this, and I have a reality today that looks like this, what are 3 things I can start right now that directionally take me there? Now, there's a reason for the ordering here. That first chapter, it's likely that one of the things that you might want to change is how you deploy technology. It's likely that one of the things you might want to change is how you invest in your people, what skills you need, how you grow their capability, how you get them to work more effectively. And also, one of the things you might want to invest in is how you work as a team, or as a function, or as a group. Now, when you do this, there's a wonderful thing here where you're like, it's directional. I'm not asking you to guarantee that you will get to that low fidelity picture. What I'm asking you to do is to say, if you were king or queen for the day, and I think you are, but if you were king or queen for the day, what 3 initiatives would you start right now? And the skill that you need to be an elite leader that thrives in the future of work and a work futurist is the ability to explore and experiment. This isn't about knowing, it's about seeking. What are the ideas that I'm going to seek out? Who are the people I'm going to seek advice and feedback from? And when you build these experiments, your job is to listen, learn, and course correct. What actually happens is you plant the seed of these experiments, you start them, and some will work and some won't. Just think about it. Every experiment that's ever been run in history, half of them fail, right? But it's not a failure. You're going to learn faster than your competition. If you do this exercise, it's not a one-off exercise. The great leaders and the great organizations I work with, they have this muscle and they do this repeatedly, almost in perpetuity. What's our next challenge? Paint the low fidelity picture, come back to today. What's our reality? What's three things? Future picture, reality, three things. They build that as a loop. And all those experiments do is they give you learning velocity. In essence, what happens is instead of doing a giant transformation, you learn 1 degree faster than your next best competition. You stay more relevant because you were able to dream a little bit bigger, but you were able to turn that dream into a pragmatic set of initiatives and insights that actually made a difference. So yes, I'm going to ask you to dream, but as you've probably already sensed, the real prize here is the action. It's that you're doing something to change how you work, how you operate, who you work with. You're making that change. Some of those experiments will be brilliant. Please do more of them. The ones that aren't, you've learned something, you share that lesson learned. And as an organization, you all grow and develop. AI has a huge role to play there. And actually, when I think about AI transformation, the very first step is always to draw a low fidelity picture of what your business might look like and come back to today. What technology have you got and how might this change how you work? So chapter 2 there is you being able to see around corners. I honestly can't get you to predict the future, but I believe with the subject matter expertise you've got, the lived experience, the connections, the relationships, and the teams you have around you, you can actually see around corners. And the job of doing that is to find the 3 things today we can start that will make our lives better tomorrow. And when you do that, you're actually creating your future and you're taking the agency, the liberation to do that. So that's step 2. So far you're 2 steps on the way to becoming a futurist, right? You've been able to understand how to broaden your horizons and think differently about the trade-offs, the portfolios, how you think broadly about the decisions you make in your business. And you can now see around corners, you can predict the future, and you can actually start to pick those pragmatic initiatives you want to start today. The 3rd step, and I've left it for 3rd on purpose, I think is one of the most valuable, but if I'm honest, also one of the most confronting. The challenge for most leaders today, in any industry, but also in the real estate industry, is staying relevant. There was a time when as a leader, if you just did your job, eventually you went up the pyramid. You did it a bit more, and you climbed again, and you climbed and you climbed, and you just had to do the same job. I just don't think that's true anymore. The world we're in is just a little bit too chaotic. There's too much change going on. And so the old style of leadership, whilst nostalgic and valuable in that time, might not be fit for purpose today. A lot of the leaders that I work with have this challenge of how do I stay relevant? How do I keep my leadership skills fit for purpose for the environment that I'm working in? And it's a tough challenge, right? Let's just acknowledge, you're already busy enough doing your day job. You've got a calendar full of meetings. You've got lots of tasks. You've got lots of actions. You've got so much to do. Have you honestly got the energy, the time, even the cognitive load to take on anything new? And that's before you've even watched the news. So many of us haven't. So instead of taking on anything new, there's a game that I've been playing for 8 years now. It focuses on the idea of subtraction. The biggest gift that I can give most of the leaders that I'm working with in any industry is the power and the agency and the belief to subtract an old way of leading. To get rid of something that used to work, not because it's bad, but because it just used to work and I don't think it does today. And what the gift that we really give is then the space and the time and the freedom to do something different. This is what I call staying relevant. The leaders that are going to be the best leaders in the future are changing the way they personally turn up today. Now, there's a little asterisk on this one. Whenever I talk about this with leaders, they're like, oh, you mean the projects I'm working on, or the business, or the teams? They want to look out. The reason this is confronting, it's looking inward. It's the most confronting mirror you can put in front of yourself as a leader. So let me explain the exercise. Every 90 days, and it's not religious, I don't pick a singular day, but in a rough range of 90 days, I stop. Sometimes I do this with a tea or a juice, sometimes I sit at a desk, other times I go for a stroll. Wherever you can be the most honest with yourselves. It's a 2-part exercise. It's part looking back and part looking forward. The look back is really important. I look back and I ask myself these 5 questions. It's called the 5 L's. What's the thing that I have done as a leader in the last 90 days that I have loved? Now, for the astute amongst you, you'll notice it's not the word like. I believe life is too short for like. It is time as a leader to embrace your superpower and say, what is the thing that I do as a leader that the company or the people around me value that is my superpower and I'm good at it? And own it. I'm not saying get on a soapbox. I'm not asking anyone to become an extrovert. I'm just saying you need to know the thing that you're good at that others around you value. When you do, I'm going to ask you to deploy that a little bit more. And I say a little bit on purpose. I don't want anyone to become a one-trick pony. Don't just be good at one thing and do it in perpetuity. But find something that is your superpower and do it a little bit more. When you do, you get joy from it. Your shoulders lift, your mojo increases, your banter gets better. You feel like a better leader. And the people around you go, you're amazing at that and you're doing more of it. Thank you. As a two-way exchange of value, it is genuinely phenomenal. So as a thriving leader, you absolutely have to know the thing that you're good at that adds value that you love. That is step one. The second part is a bit of an equation. It's what have I longed for and what have I loathed? And these two are together on purpose. I have a belief, and this is based off evidence of the people I've worked with in the last 5, 10, 15 years. Every one of you watching this right now is full. You're either full hours-wise or you're full cognitively. I'm pretty certain there's no one watching this going, I normally get to Friday, kind of 4 p.m., and I'm like, you know what I'd love? A new personal challenge, right? You sat there looking at your cactus or your dog with a wine going, if I could just get through the weekend and if I could just get through next week. I want you to break that cycle. So to break that cycle, what you have to do is, first of all, you have to look at the loathed. This is where it gets hard. This is a question where you say, what do I do as a leader that no longer adds value? Maybe take a deep breath when you ask yourself it, because it kind of hurts. It's not criticizing yourself as a leader, please, it's not. But you have to acknowledge there's something you used to do as a leader that used to work that isn't working today. And you stop it. You delete it, you remove it. The worst thing that will happen is your ego might take a small dent, but nothing else will go wrong. What does happen though, the upside, is when you remove that habit, that thing that you do as a leader, you're giving yourself the space, the time, the freedom, the liberation to try the longed for. Now, the longed for, this is where it gets exciting. This has been on your list forever. It's been on your list forever, but it's Friday and it's 4 o'clock and you're like, I haven't got the time. I'll do it next week. I'll definitely have the time next week. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next quarter. I will never do it. We have all got a long list of longed for habits that we're like, why didn't I do that? If we're honest, it's not lack of motivation or intent. It's because we didn't clear the deck and make the space to actually do it. So the gift you get to give yourself is when you remove the longed for, which trust me, I've been doing this for years, feels hard, but when you remove it, the gift is this space to go and explore again, to go and build a new muscle, a new leadership capability that will enable you to thrive today, tomorrow, and in the future. The fourth L is kind of important as well. What did I learn? The question here is, what hack did I run on myself as a leader in the last 90 days? And this one's kind of important because if you're not hacking yourself, how on earth can you ask anyone else to learn? And how can you ask anyone else to change if you're not willing to change yourself? Leadership in this year is actually relatively simple. Every leader is a role model. The decision is, do you want to be a role model for good or the other, right? I'm asking you to be a role model for good, so you've got to be learning and sharing. Here's what I learned. Now, we have to be honest, learnings can sometimes be bad things. Here's the thing I learned that I didn't like. Or here's the thing that I learned that I did like. Either way, you have to share what you learn. And the fifth L is super important. I've had the pleasure over the last 5 or so years of working with some of the most elite performance coaches around the world, coaching sports stars in all sports and all categories. And there's one thing they all say. The opposite of play isn't work. The opposite of play is fear. If you're leading through fear, at best you get compliance. And that's not enough in 2026. You want people who are adaptable and challenging and innovating. Compliance is important, but there's a bar above that. To reach that bar above compliance, you have to be playful in solving these complex, gnarly problems that are coming our way that we've not solved before. Play is going back to your childhood, getting in a room and going, here's a problem that we've never solved before. If we had to come up with an idea that would get us fired, but not quite, what would that be? If we were to come up with the most maverick idea or unconstrained, you get playful with it. And in the playfulness, you produce new creative ideas. When you do that, you will genuinely have moments of belly laughter. If you haven't got the humility to laugh at yourself as a leader once every 90 days, then you're leading through fear, which isn't sustainable. So when you add these 5 things up, what happens is it's giving you a tool, a capability to reflect on your leadership style, but you have to ask yourself the question, so what? If all you do is know where you're struggling and don't do anything about it, you are living in Groundhog Day. Please don't do that. So the real gift here is when you turn the reflection and you look forward 90 days. And you ask yourself, how do I want to turn up as a leader? What do I want my legacy to be? How do I want people to speak about my leadership style? Am I a leader that creates an environment where they thrive, right? Where they can do the best work of their lives? And if you do, then you use the 5 L's to say, how am I going to change how I turn up? If we imagine there's 5 working days in a week, you've got 5 mornings where you wake up and you decide how you're going to lead that day. And the 5 L's is my way of many other leaders' way of going, here's what did happen, but here's how I'm going to turn up. I'm going to remove the loathed. I'm going to add in the longed for. I'm going to celebrate the loved. I'm going to find a hack to run on myself so I'm making sure that I'm learning. And I'm going to be playful in my approach. I want to be honest with you, and I want to give you a very quick example. A few quarters ago when I was doing this, the thing that I longed for was to do more coaching and mentoring. I genuinely love the multiplier moment of helping a new leader when I get to share an insight or a lived experience and I see them do it and them do it and them do it and that multiplier effect. But I had no time. My calendar was absolutely jam-packed. Now, I'm going to assume it's just me and you when we're in a circle of trust here, because this is a vulnerable moment. When I looked at the loathed, the first word I wrote down was meetings. And then I'm like, I can't write down the word meetings. What is it that I do as a leader that makes me loathe meetings? Now, this is the confession. I thought and do think that meetings are better when I'm in them. So I attended a lot of meetings. But that was stopping me from being more effective because those meetings were taking up time where I couldn't do coaching and mentoring. So I made a decision that I would delete all the meetings in my calendar and I made them either a boomerang or a stick. I worked with my stakeholders and said, if this is a boomerang, put the meeting back in my calendar, tell me what the purpose of the meeting is, what my role is, and what a great meeting looks like. And if it's not, the meeting's a stick. As a set of stakeholders, we sat down and between us, we found 12 hours a week of meetings that we no longer required. But the meetings that we kept all got better because we knew what we were doing, why we were doing it, what our purpose was. So not only did I save time, the meetings I had got better, but also the saved time I got to reinvest in something more valuable. The 5 L's is your superpower. It's not about whether you do it or not. I do not have a horse in the race. I do not get royalties if you do the 5 L's. It's up to you. All I ask is that if you don't do a reflective exercise that helps you understand your leadership style, how you did work and how you want to work, if you don't do any reflection and you don't do any projection to be a better leader, you are the anchor slowing everyone down. It's not that you're stuck in traffic. You are traffic. And so my challenge to you all is to become a futurist. Don't hire one. You can become one. Think broader about the challenges in your business and think in 3s. Think about that time horizon of 18 months or 3 years and how you can paint that low fidelity picture. Think about the reality of today and find 3 things to do that can make you better. And be the best version of you. Be the leader that everyone wants to work with, that everyone wants to be eventually. And not only will you feel great, you'll create thriving teams and thriving organizations. If you do those things, you've become a futurist. And in doing that, in the typical style of 2026, you've realized that it's not that things happen to you. You've got way more control and way more influence over your destiny than ever before. And you've got the tools, the technology, and the people around you that want you to thrive. You can create a better future by thinking and acting this way. Don't just imagine it, but do it. And when you do, I'll be super proud and more than happy to give you a certificate to make sure everyone acknowledges that you are now a futurist. You are building a better future, and it's not happening to you. You're in the driver's seat. So go and give it a go. Thank you.